Okay, since we're going to start, since y'all are going to the races next, the first question, which I did not tell him I was going to ask, is Ron, I see you have 5 horses in today. Can we bet?
Absolutely.
Which races?
You won 3 yesterday. So.
We had a
won 3
scratch.
yesterday.
Yeah, we did win 3 yesterday. Maybe we can repeat it. We'll see.
And Bret, you have one in at Oakland, I believe.
I do. Horse coming off a way off. She looks pretty good. I'd feel pretty good if she had a race under her belt, but she may need one.
So can you all hear everybody in the back? If everybody just put the mic front. Okay, since so much of this panel has centered on HISA/HISA, I'm going to jump in with that as well. And so we're less than a year into it now, since everybody had to sign up. What's been the impact of HISA so far on your stable and on your owners? And I'll just start here with Bret.
Well, it's been a lot of additional paperwork, obviously, and expense comes with the paperwork. Obviously, we've been having to do a lot of these protocols in Kentucky for a while now, and it's required us to have the veterinarian examine the horses every time they do speed work and every time they're going to be entered. So with that comes an additional cost to the owner, because the vets have a tremendous amount of paperwork they have to go through. So they are charging the owners every time they examine the horses to be able to work or run. So the costs are piling up on them, the time restraints on the vets and everybody. So, maybe some of this stuff has been a little bit positive, but it's a little bit overkill, overreach. You're putting opinions in the hands of, some of the regulators that aren't familiar with the horses. So it's a very gray area, and it's caused a lot of problems.
Ron? Of course, you're in Louisiana, which has
Yes.
been joined.
Currently, I train in Louisiana year-round, and I haven't shipped outside the state since HISA has been implemented. I'm going to be. I haven't signed up, and I won't sign up. I'll get out of training if I have to sign up. For a stable like mine, 55, 60 horse stable, I can't afford, I couldn't afford the cost of having to hire somebody to do all the paperwork for me. And the added expenses of it all, it wouldn't work financially for me. It's a struggle to get by. The last couple of years, feed is going up 50%, hay, shavings. It's just, it doesn't make financial sense for a trainer in Louisiana year-round to sign up and have to, take on all those added fees, because, right now we're barely making it as it is, and, it's just, it would be a real struggle if I had to, if it came to the day where I'd have to sign up, so.
Well, that's pretty stark. Jason, you've just been training for a few years now. You're working on building up your stable. How's this impacting you? You race Louisiana, Arkansas, Kentucky, of course, ship all around.
Yeah, I think a lot of what Bret said, just, there's added costs, and then it's just the time to do all the extra work. Between me and my main assistant, who's my wife, Shelby, we spend a lot of time doing the extra paperwork with all the, keeping track of every, we already kept track of what the horses got every day, but then to have to put it into a second file, it just doubles the workload, which is just time it takes away from actually working on your horses, which is what we should be really focused on anyway. So
I have about 115 horses in training, and I have a full-time bookkeeper / business manager, and there's no way possible I could do that and do my job as well as training the horses. So the time restraints and the additional expense for me for paying her to do all this, just keeps building up and building up. And like Ron said, there's very small margin in our industry as it is, and you're going to see more and more people put out of business because a lot of people can't afford to pay somebody to help them, yet they don't have the time to do it.
We haven't even really, I guess the bills have gone out, but I don't know that anybody's been paying the bills as we see if this is lawful or not. Have you had any feedback from owners? Because I think there's a good case that ultimately they're going to be picking up quite a bit of the freight.
I've been getting feedback from them regularly and a lot lately, as it seems like it's starting to come down to it. And I have a lot of them that are at least gonna cut back the numbers. They have young horses, they're evaluating them much quicker, moving down the road from them, dropping them, selling them, whatever. So the number's gonna drop for a lot of my owners pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think, I mean, what could get by in Kentucky, a state like Louisiana, it would have devastating effects, And it's not just me, it's most trainers. I mean, you would see trainer stables dwindle. If I were to stay in it, there's no way I could keep the number of horses I'd have and manage it all. Louisiana, especially over the summer, I mean, we run allowance races 20, 30,000. I mean, it's not, the Kentucky purse structure. It's just, you just can't, you get to a point where you can't afford it, and I think that's what's going to end up eventually happening. You look at what is HISA's ultimate goal, and I'm sure there is one. To me, it looks like they'd like probably about half the racetracks to close down, about half the people to get out of it. And I think that's what would eventually happen if it's fully implemented throughout the country over the span of several years.
Jason?
Yeah, I think, a lot of my smaller clients, they don't want to pay, the added costs of a per start fee or, the extra vet checks and all the other added fees that, they're wanting to put on us. Because, over time it adds up. I mean, I lost a horse last month because I went up on my day rate and he went to a guy that was $5 less. So he's saving $150 a month. So, I mean, what's going to happen when he's getting dinged for $500 to make a start?
Of course, the goal behind HISA is to make racing safer for everybody and to give horse players and the public more confidence that it's being run cleanly. Do you see any ways that it's doing that? Is it succeeding?
No, I don't think it is. I think it does more harm than good for the horse. I think, as trainers, we operate what is best for the horse first and foremost, and there's a lot of rules that aren't what's best for the horse. Going even into the medications, I mean, there's certain medications that I think it's inhumane to not run on, and they're looking to take that away from us. So,
The whole thing is a facade. It's been all smoke and mirrors. They've sold this thing as the safety of the horse. It's absolutely not about the safety of the horse. It's a few people with self-interest that have their own personal agenda. If it was all about the horse, we would be spending a lot more time on racing surfaces. I think we could
Correct.
probably cure about 50 to 75% of the injuries if we had somebody overseeing services on a daily, weekly basis, not somebody that's in there taking soil samples before the meet and after the meet and calling it good. That's not getting the job done. So, taking away certain kind of medications, therapy machines, things that are truly beneficial, they're having the opposite effect of what they're saying is the safety of the horse and the rider. They're doing absolutely the opposite of it. Like I said, it's all facade.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, with all the whip violations, they're going to be able to pay for it with those, which really aren't doing anything productive for anybody. I mean, that's impacting how the riders ride and the horse players, and they're not happy. And if they're not happy, we're still not going to exist regardless of this. So if they're not betting, then we're not going to have any money to run for anyway.
yeah, and I mean, and you see the crop rule, as far as, I mean, it hurts. It hurts the jockeys. I mean, I can't see how it's safer for a jockey to be limited. And I mean, a jockey has so much time to within a race to figure everything out, how the race is going to set up and all that. And now they have to count how many times they're hitting a horse on top of it. I can't see how that's safer for the horse.
If anybody's seen those new crops that they're using, they need to figure something out. Overuse of a whip, I agree, there need to be something done, but these new crops that they've tried to start using, which I don't know if they'll stick with them or not, I don't know if you guys have seen them or not, but they're like a Nerf. It's like a Nerf, and believe me, I could get struck as hard as you guys can hit me, and it's
Right.
not effective. And I'm
Well,
not
it's like-
skinny, but I'm not fat. And you know, a 1,200-pound animal's not gonna really feel this. So these are like people sitting in these offices coming up with these rules and regulations that really aren't for the benefit of the horse, the rider, the owner, the industry as a whole.
Right, well, that's like the,
Benefit for them
Right.
financially.
well,
I
like
mean-
the crop itself, I mean, like the older horses, they respond to it because they know what it means. But the younger horses, and I mean, this is coming from Shelby, my wife, who rides them every day. She says, you know, the 2-year-olds, they've never been hit with another whip, so when they get this, it's nothing to them. But, you know, a normal whip, these older horses are used to it. They say, okay, I'm supposed to do this now. But when you're trying to switch leads or steer a horse this way or that way, you got no control with the new whip.
Yeah, I mean, back to the public better, I mean, you know, you have horses that really respond well to the whip. I mean, you know, it's really not fair too for the public as far as that goes.
I'm gonna get back to this, but just to be devil's advocate, does it matter if we lose some small tracks? There are people out there that are saying, so what? It'll be better for the sport, it'll be better quality. And
It's-
will it impact you all if we lose some of these small tracks?
It's better for the tracks that are for HISA. It's better for them because we're all a negative statistic to them. You know, we're all a negative statistic to them. You know, there are breakdowns, of course, it happens, but the less breakdowns, the easier it is for them. The less horse racing, the less breakdowns. It's that simple, I think.
Right, but if you just take the statistics out of it, you can say, well, if you eliminate horse racing in Louisiana as a whole, then you're gonna say, okay, what about the economy of the feed stores, the hay, all the local suppliers? I mean, it's more than just
Absolutely.
the horses and the horse racing.
I can't
It's
see
the
any
whole.
positives of eliminating any racetracks. I don't see any positives out of it. Like Ron said, I'm sure a lot of the larger operations would like to see less racetracks. That would possibly pump up the numbers and the number of starters at their racetracks. But, you know, I don't see any overall positive for us.
Yeah, what about when we get into book 5, 6, 7 at the Keeneland sale?
Yeah.
If you lose those markets. So you all raise these great points, but in earlier panels, this and other conferences we've talked a lot about, you hear about the social contract that horse racing has and that changes need to be made because the public doesn't want to see horses whipped and that, you know, people think these horses are, you know, being hopped and they use the word doping when they mean slight medication overages. So my question here is, and you all are all on boards of the HBPA and are engaged, but how do we get more of your fellow trainers and owners engaged in advocacy? In other words, to help the HBPA help you?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think the biggest fault we've had as an industry as a whole is lack of educating the public. You know, a very famous surgeon in Kentucky got on board after a while and became an advocate of banning LASIX. And I just was appalled and couldn't believe that he took that position. And finally, after a while, his story was that it's just we need to do away with it because of public perception. Well, that's unbelievable that a veterinarian would take that stand that let's just destroy an animal and cause serious health issues because public perception, because the general public doesn't understand what LASIX does and doesn't do. So I think that's the biggest problem biggest fault we've had, and that's the campaign we need going forward is to start educating people on medications, the care of these animals. You know, we talk about billionths of a part of an overage on a legal medication. It makes headlines. I mean, it makes it look like there's a bunch of cheating going on, and it's not. You know, we're a very regulated industry. The testing state of the art. It's another problem with the HISA deal. They're talking about calling positives, they won't give us threshold levels, which in this day and age, we're so excited to have state-of-the-art testing, but if you're gonna have state-of-the-art testing, then you have to have threshold levels. It's plain and simple. There's gonna be contamination. There's gonna be billions of a part, trillions of a part in everything.
Well, we learned yesterday it's 0.62% of a female flea spread out through the whole 50 kilogram or whatever the size of the horse is to show. That was Steve Parker that you all are very familiar with. I want to get back to this, but let's go down the panel, following up on what Bret said. The question was, how do we get your fellow trainers engaged in advocacy and helping to change the message? Because the people that pushed HISA and got it passed have millions of dollars at their access.
Well, I think, as a younger trainer, I try to use social media as a platform to kind of, say what I need to say and get it out there, and then hopefully it gets spread across the masses. And I think there's, no offense to anyone in the room, the older generation is reluctant to open the door to the outside world to kind of let them in and see what we do. And I've said it before, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you let them in and then they're going to find all the things that you're doing wrong. But if you can let them in and show them all the things that we're doing right, then that kind of gets you a little, little bit down the road, and then you can kind of work from there. But you got to let them in before you can get that far. And if you're not willing to let them in, then they're never going to see your side.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree, and, back to what Bret said, I mean, the public, they only see what the media puts out, and it's a lot of negative, which, we need to do better. We have to have a bigger and better platform to bring our, side of it. And, what the answer is, how do we do that, I'm not sure, but I think that's something that we need to all work together to do,
I think, like Jason said, I mean, young people do a lot of social media. I'm not a social media guy, just for the fact I'm afraid it could get me in a lot of trouble. But I do think that's very, very helpful. And I think maybe it's gonna go back to a grassroots situation too, where guys like Ron and I and Jason and a lot of people, we're just gonna have to go almost door to door. I mean, we're gonna have to go to all the trainers on the backside one by one and say, this is what we gotta do. I mean, guys, you gotta get involved. We have to, the HBPA has made it very simple for us now to reach out to our congressmen and senators and stuff like that. I mean, that was a great technology that we've had to get us to get to people and tell them how we feel and what's going on. To be able to pass this COVID bill, attach it to a COVID bill, to emergency bill, that's something that should be stopped with every instance. No emergency bill should ever have anything attached to it. And that's how they got this going. So, they've
Then
got the
on
upper
this
hand.
bill,
Half the people that
to
signed
correct
off on this bill don't even have any idea that this was on there or anything else. That's how Congress works, unfortunately. But for us to be able to defend ourselves and make positive moves forward, it's gonna have to be social media, grassroots. We're gonna have to get all the trainers and owners involved, and we need to let our legislators know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the majority of the people that are for HISA are really outside of racing, and it's, they see it through the public eye. But the people that are in racing, involved in racing, the majority is vastly against it, and I think that tells a story right there,
Yeah, so it's oh, yes, Leonard?
I was gonna ask, do you, and this is for everybody, do you really think that it's a true public outcry against fair treatment and good treatment?
I think a lot of it's the tracks trying to put blame because they don't want to put the proper maintenance on surfaces, which is probably 80–90% of what is for the best well-being of the horse.
Let me finish my question. Or do you think that this is pretty much just a media-driven, industry-owned media, Blood Horse, the main magazines are all owned by a particular or a couple of groups that simply use these things to push a position. And I'm at the racetrack, I'm in places with gamblers, and my real sense for things is that in truth, people who are betting on horse races, they aren't concerned with truly how many times you hit that horse. It's just, did he not hit him, or did it cause me not to win that race? And that's the real reality of, I think it's like trying to prove a negative or disprove a negative that's being pushed, and it's just all a false thing. And then we get into a position where we're trying to fix what's not really broken. When I saw some statistics here yesterday, I said, man, the levels of positive drug tests are lower than any sport in the world, pretty much. But now we taking on a position. I'm gonna force Bret, Ryan, you to fix something that's not really broken, or to come in with a fix of that somebody, he's got to be cheating because he's winning a lot. Ryan's winning a lot of races. He's cheating. So now come up with something to get at Ryan when he's passing every drug test, every screening, following every rule. The fences are around the racetrack. You can't bring people in. I don't care how many people you want to bring into the backside. You don't have, the people don't have access to the backside like that because we're keeping out the public and keeping out things that could possibly infringe on the rights and infringe on making sure this sport is clean and it stays as clean as it is. Sorry.
I think you're right. I think it's a small group that are feeding this. There's no doubt. They're a small group that are feeding the media. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, we have to cave in and respond to solve the public perception.
Well,
Even though it might be a small group, they're putting it out there. They're continuing to put it out there to kind of harm our product and harm our industry.
yeah, I think it's just the loudest person in the room is winning right now.
Absolutely.
And they're just being louder than we are.
Yeah, I think we're preaching largely to the choir here, but to the point, there's an outside public that doesn't understand racing, that is hearing this narrative. This is what has to be counteracted, and how, with like hardly any resources, do we get control of the narrative? Eric likes to say, perception isn't reality, so don't say perception is reality. But I just got to bring this up because it's so telling. When he's in Washington dealing with congressional staffs, he'll say to them, because LASIK has been made to be this boogeyman, right? That's the cause of so many evils. He says, well, you do know that that's an option, racing on LASIK. And how many of the staffers are like, oh no, we thought you had to run your horses. So this is what we're dealing with, and they have access to the people that set the policy. So what are some real world things that we can do? Jason, y'all mentioned social media. If you don't follow Jason, if you're on Twitter, you should. He has this hilarious, that's very telling segment he does so often when, Heisel will put up, did you know? And he'll counteract with a, did you know? And I'm not thinking of any good examples.
I'm about to start commenting when they post new job postings about which track's paying for it. But I haven't started that one yet.
Has anybody ever looked at the budget, a little bit into their budget? Has anybody looked at the payroll? I know they try to hide it the best that they can. Fortunately or unfortunately, I know a lot of people that work for HISA, and I know they got very high-paying jobs, and they're probably qualified for about a quarter of that salary, and some of them qualify at 0% of that salary. I don't think any corporation in America that was successful would have a payroll like that.
And the payroll is all funded by fines. I mean, so they want to fine us, they want to find ways to get money added to their payroll.
So, again, how do you get more of you were talking, Bret, about maybe having to go barn to barn and tell trainers, you need to get involved. I think one thing that we could use, there's been a series of op-eds that have appeared in the trades by people that are in favor of HISA. You know what, it would be great to, especially horse owners and prominent trainers, to say why you think that there is a better path forward. And I think we got to be cognizant, we got to do better.
I think so, but we're also, in those kind of magazines and things, we're speaking to ourselves in a way, and we need to get outside of that to the general public as well.
There's probably an avenue if you can get the tracks on board to do something between the races. You know, you've got a crowd of people that aren't horsemen. Maybe if you can get the track on board, but at the same time, half the track's don't want to upset the apple cart, so it's kind of.
I'm always very open to having people come to my barn. You know, obviously, Derby week is crazy. Everybody's coming in town wanting to come see everything. It becomes difficult because they try to shut the borders down a little bit per se. But it's always great to get people that have never seen what happens on a morning, afternoon basis at the racetrack and see what goes on and see how these animals are cared for. Most people are completely amazed and overwhelmed. They have no idea what goes on back there, and I think that helps. It just, you know, the old commercial about one person tells two person, and they tell four, and they tell eight. That's kind of what we got to get going on, and I think somehow we've got to get more people around the industry to see the daily goings on and how these horses are cared for and how the trainers basically almost 99 and 9/10% of them put the animal first, and I don't think that's what Heis is doing.
Could we get horsemen to reach out to their state and their federal representatives and invite them to come to the barn one-on-one? Will a horseman do that? Well, I guess one thing to come up here and say, we need to do this. We need to get action. We need to get it implemented. We need to get people doing their part.
I think that'd be a great idea.
If they can wake up early enough.
Well, I'm gonna use this as like a public service announcement, and Bret brought up the software advocacy that the Kentucky HBPA, thanks to Rick Hiles and the Kentucky board, approved last year to do this campaign, which Joe Klebs, our interim executive director there, set up. Immediately, we were using it for, to send messages about HISA, and we've also done it with Kentucky for this Gray Machine campaign, and we'll probably do one for sports wagering. But we've also done it on behalf of the National HBPA, used this, and the Iowa HBPA, and it is really cool. All the person has to do is type in their name, type in their address, and there's a pre-written message. You hit send, and it automatically goes to your representatives based on your address. And we also did one to the FTC asking, and I think there were, Joe, was it about how many people? 100 responded to the FTC to disapprove the rules. I think it was 900. 900. So, there are people that'll say, oh, it's not that effective when it's the same message. But you all tell me if I'm wrong. I think you got to make it convenient for trainers if you want them to do it. And but I just want to say that software is there for the other HBPA affiliates to, if you want to talk to Joe about it, he also set it up with similar things for the NTRA and the Kentucky Equine Education Project when he worked with them. I know talking to Joe Poole earlier, he was very interested in it. If you just want information on getting your own, or if you want to test it out and see how it works, if you've got a campaign that, that the Kentucky HBPA would be sympathetic with in the first place, but which I think is always the case. There might be a nominal cost associated with it for, labor and stuff, but it's been really effective, and it's been a great tool that the board of the Kentucky HBPA approved, and getting a lot more, the returns, and I don't think it's coincidental when we put out these things for people to contact their representatives and their senators about HISA. Usually we will see some sort of HISA statement coming out. They're aware of it. And one thing I really want to bring up that was unsolicited, this is what we need more of. Wesley Ward and Larry Ravelli's open letter. They came to Eric. This was not us coming to them, but it was wonderful. They wanted help, crafting an open letter to the community. And in it, they committed to working and getting their fellow trainers and owners and board that there is another way. We all want safer racing. We all want to, take care of the horse and the human participants. But there's a better way to do it that doesn't put stables and racetracks at financial jeopardy and doesn't trample on, the constitutional rights.
What's impressive about that is Wesley trains for a lot of pro HISA people, and it put himself in probably a very uncomfortable position, and probably a dangerous position business-wise for him. So kudos to him for stepping forward and doing what's best for his horses and the industry, even though he may be in jeopardy of losing some clients over that deal.
Yeah, and he said that he, worried about that at first, and then he decided, I'm entitled to my opinion, and this is too important. And by having this advocacy software, we were able to let people virtually sign it in support. And Joe, what was the number we got? 1,465 people signed the letter. And I think that really sent a good message that when people are hearing a narrative that the vast majority of horse racing supports HISA, this is evidence that that is not accurate. Do y'all have other ideas on what we can do to get our message out? And
No, I think that was great what Wesley and Larry Ravelli did. But yeah, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take trainers to speak up and be open about it, whether their owners agree with them or not. They have, like I said, what's best for the animal and take that stance, and I think we need more of that.
I think luckily for us, this is kind of probably where the HBPA was developed in the beginning a long time ago. It gives the horsemen, the trainers, the owners, a little bit of a layer of protection, having the HBPA to be a voice for us, because a lot of times, a lot of the trainers, owners, veterinarians get a little intimidated, a little worried about the repercussions from having an opinion. And I think we, Ron, Jason, I are a little braver in the fact that we know that the HBPA has our back and we can do the right thing and voice our opinion without tremendous repercussions.
One other thing, in Kentucky, the vets, the purse structure, they can probably mark up the medications enough to where they're making money and it's worth the added work. But in states like Louisiana, it's hard to find vets as it is sometimes over the summer. It's going to make life a lot harder because you're not going to see people wanting to get into being a veterinarian. You're not going to see younger people take that path. And you're going to see the older ones want to get out because it's just too much work. It's not what they're used to doing, and it's way too time consuming. So that's going to affect a lot of states, I think.
Following up on what you were saying, I'm going to try to get, how much time we got, Eric?
You've got almost 25 minutes.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, we can get back to HISA, but I was going to ask some more lighthearted questions. And one is, though, related, has the magic and the wonder of being around racehorses and in-horse races waned for you at all? Bret, you've been training longer than anybody.
No, not at all for me. That's what drives me. That's what I love to do. The rest of this stuff is what turns you a little sour and makes you think about doing something different. But the horses are what makes you, want to get up every morning and do it.
Yeah, for me as well. When I realized quite early I wasn't going to be the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, I said, I'm going to go ahead and do this. This is probably second to that. But all jokes aside, I love it. I love being a trainer. I love my horses, my staff. I love the lifestyle, But as Bret said, there's a lot that goes along with it that can sour you up. That's, recently the past, with HISA brought about, and the price increases of everything. It makes it hard to go on and do it the way you want to do it. But yeah, like I said, if I was to have to sign up, there's a strong possibility I would probably get out or just cut my numbers dramatically where I could manage it.
Jason, I read the Q&A with you that one of the trades had, and you're looking to build your stable to, like, lots and lots of horses. But you know, maybe you haven't been trained long enough to get sour on it yet, but, I mean, just your thoughts, the wonder.
I just love the action. I mean, it's all fun to me, and you know, I heard, I think Mike Maker said they'll run out of stalls before I run out of horses. So I mean, that's kind of, you know, just bring them on and see how it goes, and you know, we'll fight the good fight till we can't fight it anymore. But you know, I grew up doing it, third generation, fourth generation, technically. You know, kind of like Ron, when I knew I wasn't going to be a jockey because I like to eat, I was like, well, I'll train horses, and you know, and I love it, and I love getting up, and I love training the good ones. I love claiming the cheap ones, and everything in between. It's all fun for me, and you know, it's a family affair for us, and it always has been, and probably always will be. So.
How do you get potential new fans, potential owners to get what you all get about horse racing? How can, and so I guess that's part of the question, is how can we market that feeling?
I keep saying this, it's not a broken record, but I think if you get them to the backside, that's gonna be one of the first hooks.
I mean, for me, I sell the excitement, the action of it. I mean, the race day is, if you make the race day fun, the rest of it will fall into place. But you can't. But I mean, I sell the build up. You know, I send workout videos. I send training videos. Anything to keep them involved in the 4 or 5 weeks up to a race. Because I mean, you know, the old ways of. And I was talking to somebody about the other day, a jockey agent, a friend of mine. He said, you know, he's like, you know, you guys deal with owners who want to, you know, they want to talk to you every 2 days about their horse, and maybe they have one. He's like, you know, back, you know, whenever, you know, in the 80s and 90s, maybe you claimed a horse, you said, hey, we entered, hey, we run this day, and you saw him in the paddock. And I don't think
It's
you
made life a lot different.
Yeah, and I don't think you can do that anymore. But I think you can use that to your advantage of, you know, make them a part of it. I tell my clients, I said, it's your horse, I just train it, and you make them a part of every, most conversations, and they stay involved, and then, you know, they want to get more, they want to get more horses, they want to do a little bit more. I had a guy come over 3 months ago with 3. We've claimed 12. Now we're going to Texas with a string, and he's loving life. So, you know, so if you get, you know, it doesn't take a lot of them, but if you take one guy that had 3 and you turn him into a guy that has 33, then you can kind of grow from there. And then he's going to tell his friends, and so on and so forth.
Interesting, you're taking a string to Texas.
Well, just following Bret.
That's all you gotta do.
It's worked well for him. So.
Well, and I'll ask Bret this. I mean, are you concerned about the future? I mean, everything was going so bad in Texas, and then they passed that legislation where the sales tax on equine products went back into the industry, and it was going great. And then now HISA hit. Now you can't simulcast except to export to Canada.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer they can survive at their current level with no simulcasting. I think that each track in Texas is a little bit different situation. I think Sam Houston is not simulcasting because of a Federal Trade Commission situation, because they're a publicly traded company. So they've kind of got them a little bit there because they're not just located in Texas. I think Lone Star will be back simulcasting. They're owned by the Indians, and I'm not sure they really give a shit what the government says or FTC says. So I think we're in pretty good shape there. But eventually, obviously, like everybody else, we're going to have to resolve it, or those tracks won't be able to survive.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to have to be resolved, but in a sense, too, I mean, for me, that I'm not signing up for HISA, that's where I would send my horses to, my non-Louisiana breds to run, you know? So it could be benefit to them in that aspect if they took the stands.
Switching subjects, y'all have substantial size stables, or what used to be considered substantial size. How do you get and keep enough help? And is there a point, a point of diminishing returns on a stable size?
I've got I've got a family of like 15 that work for me, so as long as I don't make one of them
He's
mad,
got a
I'm good.
2-year-old daughter who's been walking
She's
hots
been
out
walking
there.
hot. She's great. She's mixing feed right now, actually. We got to get back there and pick her up. But yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of it's you try to get good people that know more good people and keep pulling them in that way.
It's been an impossible task.
Yeah, it's
been
not
an impossible task.
not easy.
It's not just our industry, obviously, but over the last 2 years with COVID and everything, has reduced the number of employees that you can find. So it's been, that's part of the issue too, when you add HISA costs involved with this, our labor costs are out the roof. I mean, it's just the highest bidder who gets somebody. So eventually, you're losing significant money just to stay in business.
Yeah, I had an owner. We were kind of looking. He's a businessman. I said, let's just look at my stuff together and figure out where I can maybe make money or where I'm losing money. And he goes, well, how many employees is it per horse? And he said, I think he broke it down. He said, what? He was so far off base. He had it down to like you could do 10 horses with 1.5 people. And I said, well, it takes about 3 people per 5 horses because you got a groom, hot walker, rider. Rider, every 8 or whatever. And he couldn't believe how much it cost, and then how much you had to pay him on top of how many people you had to have. Because you with 30 horses, you end up having 15 employees, which is bananas insane.
So odd, stable in Louisiana year-round, and it makes it easier to keep employees, being that they want to be here year-round. But when I go from the summer, where I pay my employees probably just as good, if not better, than any trainer there, then I go to fairgrounds, and my day rates are a little different than the guys coming in from Kentucky. So I tend to lose employees through that because they'd rather obviously get paid a little bit more. So we've had to raise what we pay our employees that way. So that's another thing. I mean, where it's kind of not balanced with HISA and what the day rates the Kentucky trainers can get to where the other states and what their day rates get. So.
Sort of related, there's so many prominent owners and partnerships have teamed together to buy pricey yearlings. If you've seen their names in the program, you can hardly read it. I thought there used to be a limit on how many names you could have. Apparently, they just keep shrinking the font, or you had to own a certain percent of the horse. But and it seems that many times these horses just go to a handful of trainers. Is this having an impact on racing, or are we still talking about maybe only around 100 horses falling into this category, and it really doesn't have much impact?
I think the horse player hates that more than anybody. I mean, as a trainer, obviously you want more opportunities to get more horses. But when they see, just for instance, Chad Brown has 5 in a turf stake, or 3 in a turf stake. It was a 5-horse field, and they're all owned by the same people. And then the 5-to-1 shot wins it, and the 8-to-5 shot ran 5th. Then they think something's up. They think somebody's doing something they're not supposed to be to game the system. So it's just another way to put a negative impact on what we do.
I don't know what the answer is. Obviously, they showed quite a few studies that field size makes a dramatic difference in handle. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is the guys that have a lot of horses are being rewarded for doing good, for being who they are. So I see both sides of it. We've done some things recently because of the reduction in the foal crops to start uncoupling. I think that's going to help things a little bit. But unless, we as an industry can do things to make it where everybody has a chance, small guy, the big guy, everybody can survive and make a living, that's where we're going to. I mean, there's going to be fewer and fewer trainers. There's going to be more trainers with more horses in one race, and therefore that's going to drop the handle, and then we're going to be out.
Well, that's one of the questions I have on the list is there still a place for a small stable in American racing? For example, Jason, your dad, and Bret, your dad had, pretty small stables.
I mean, my dad's happy he retired 2 years ago.
I know, he told me, he said, I don't know why he wants to have so many horses. How does he get enough good help? But
I think there's a place for it for sure, and we sure need them and want them. It's just been very difficult for them to survive. It is a numbers game. I mean, all three of us sitting here, I mean, I've been doing a lot longer than they have, but the opportunities I've had to train top quality horses has been small. I've had a few opportunities, but so the point is we have to go through a lot of horses to find a few that can compete. So it is quite a numbers game. A small guy coming in with the cost the way they are, basically a trainer survives on their wins. I mean, it's commissions. Basically, all three of us would be very happy if we paid our bills on our day rate, and I don't think any of us could sit up here and tell you we cover our costs on our day rate. So where we make our money or break even is winning races and making our commissions. So if a small guy's just got a handful of horses and bad horses, he's not going to be around very long.
The late Mel Studi told me some years ago that when he was young and he had trouble getting horses because everybody wanted an old trainer, and then he got old and everybody wanted a young trainer. So I guess the question is, do you think we'll ever see another trainer like Dwayne Lucas competing at the top end of the game at age 87?
He's one of a kind for sure. I mean, maybe the greatest speaker, and he's a guy that represents the industry that everybody's enamored with. He's just that guy that at 87 years old, he's probably as energetic about his job as he was when he first started. I mean, I hate to say he's going to fall over in his shed row one day or fall off his pony. We beg him not to get on his pony every day, and that's just him. But he's great for the business.
Maybe thoughts?
No, I mean, I think, guys like that, keep this business going and keep people interested. You need class acts like Mr. Lucas. But back to, with a little guy get out, I think yes, I think you'll see a lot of smaller stables get out and a lot of bigger stables, dwindle. I think a lot of middle stables, horse, those 30 to 50 horse stables, I think you'll see a lot of those stables probably shrink as well,
What's your favorite memory or experience as a trainer or in any capacity in racing that few, if anyone else, knows about? True confessions time.
I don't have any one specific event. I think from the outside, people looking from the outside looking in, I think, I'm not speaking for these guys, but I don't think everybody really realizes how much winning races means to us and how much losing races mean to us on a daily basis.
My wife does.
Yeah.
It's a roller coaster, and it's a very difficult thing. I mean, you think about something, if you're winning 20% of this game, 20% of the time, it means you're getting your ass whipped 80% of the time. I don't know how anybody can feel good about themselves losing at something 80% of the time. And that's when you're doing good.
I strive to lose 80% of the time.
And if you're a small stable that doesn't have as many opportunities, each win just means, I know this from firsthand experience of paying those bills on horses, but means so much to your financial picture. Plus you're in it for the excitement and the thrill and that rush you get when you win. But it also has a huge impact on your finances. Like you said, nobody's making money off their day money. You've got to win races, and it's getting tougher and tougher.
It's funny because in a sick way, we're more excited about the win just from the competition wise and winning. The financial thought is secondary, which obviously the financial part of it should be the first thought, but really it's secondary to
Absolutely.
what we
for sure.
think when we win and lose.
Yeah, I mean, my owners will, well, that purse is only this. I'm like, I had no idea what the purse was. It didn't matter to me.
Right.
I just wanted to win the race.
Yeah, I mean, we jump up and down and yell just as much for a $5,000 claimer as a stake horse, and I mean, yeah, winning races, the ups and downs of when you're doing well and or you're not doing so well. I mean, it takes an emotional toll on you, your barn, everybody, so.
How much tougher is it to win races today than maybe, say, Bret, 5-10 years ago?
I think the purse structure has made it much more difficult. Owners and trainers are willing to be more aggressive, dropping horses down the ladder just to win a race because financially they can come out. So I think it just all gets pushed down, and
it makes it tougher, like you said, for the smaller stable because the bigger stable, they don't really need those 20,000 non-2, 12.5 non-2 claimers. They can take those horses and run them for 5, right? It makes it a little bit tougher to win races nowadays. The way the purse structure, when you can claim them in certain areas and drop them and get a win and come out 20,000, 30,000 ahead, I mean, it makes the racing tougher. So.
Thoughts, Jason?
No, I mean, I just kind of agree with everything Ron was given there. I mean,
Well, what about questions?
Hang on, Dr. Harrington.
Okay, I'm a veterinary owner. I've worked the racetrack. I've done Keeneland, Fasig-Tipton, and I'm very versed in the industry, but I don't have a lot of money, and the thing that bothers me the most are the vet bills, because I'm in the industry. I've been there, done that. So when they've tacked on this exam fee and everything else, like I know, you're going to do whatever you can, because if that horse doesn't start because the vet decides it's not going to. But that's not where I'm going. Where I'm going is you need a PR person that will be educated and go from barn to barn, stall to stall, and say, here's my $5,000 claimer. I want everybody to know that this is our favorite horse in the barn. Just like when they did, what was it, Burger King? Where's the beef? And they had this old lady with a pair of glasses on. Somebody really personable to represent the backside. I think that's really important. And Donna Brothers does a great job, and there's a lot of people who could do a great job that has been in front of the camera on a horse, but I think the industry needs a spokesperson that somebody can relate to. That's my own personal opinion. Having been there, done it, and seen everything. Thank you.
I'll just repeat what I've mentioned before, that everybody here has the opportunity to be an ambassador for horse racing. If you've got a phone, you've got a camera. And Jason, like I said, he does a great job on social media, but you don't have to be really sophisticated. People just love, I can't believe, I did this thing back when I'd be at the track at 5:30 in the morning and take a picture. First set at track. And all the hits you get, it's not even that great a picture, it's maybe not even focused, and it's just a horse. So, but then when you can add on the personal, this is why we love this horse, and, we don't think of him as a cheap horse. We think of him as having all this courage and stuff. So, again, getting your colleagues, Bret, we might have to get you on social media. You can pay somebody to do it now.
Let Sarah do it.
What happens when I have a cocktail and want to fire out something?
I know I'm married
7
to one of
o'clock at
those.
night.
Doug Daniels, another veterinarian in the room. This is probably best directed at Bret, but I'll ask all of you. Because of the number of jurisdictions that you're in,
It's working, you just gotta speak.
Talk to closer. Best directed at Bret because of the number of horses he has and the jurisdictions that he's in, but please all answer. From a standpoint of an average, what do you think the current safety rules has cost your owners per horse per month?
You know, it varies a little bit depending on if a horse is ready to run or just getting ready to run. The ones that are penalized the most are the horses that are, 60 days away from races that are working every single week. So every 7 days or 6 days, 5 days, whatever the trainer's work schedule is, that vet's doing a report. When they're racing, now you add the work fee and the race to okay to race. So, just one horse per month, it could add several $100s to their vet bill very easily.
If I could just take the opportunity to touch a little bit on the education standpoint. My math sucks, but my memory's pretty good. In 2018, Jenny and I actually set a very similar panel up talking about advocacy and getting the message out. So it's not something new, at least for this group. And I've said this to Jenny on a couple of different topics, but this one in particular, once again, I wrote a white paper that, didn't go anywhere, although I did a couple of meetings. I came to Iowa and Nebraska with some ARCI stuff, and I talked about what we needed to do in order to promote the sport, just like what Dr. Harrington's talking about. The racetracks do a great job of, promoting the racetrack, but the industry has done a poor job of promoting horse racing. And I'm going to blame it, Eric, not National HBPA. In my professional opinion, the original mission statement of the NTRA is a complete failure, because that's what many people in this room and certainly many organizations paid a lot of money to do. Go baby go. I was about to get married, and my in-laws in Wisconsin, who didn't know anything about horse racing, they picked up on go baby go. And all that failed, right? So I took it upon myself to do some investigative work and wrote a paper about what did the PGA do, because pre-Tiger, they were falling apart. And so they went into a campaign that all of the players put money into a fund that went specifically for PR. Not PR for Churchill, not PR for Keeneland, not PR for Sam Houston, PR for horse racing. I always thought it would be great to have a jockey jump off a horse and slam a bottle of Gatorade. Simple. But nobody's out there thinking of that. And Bret hit the nail on the head. We can talk to ourselves through, our wonderful media, Blood Horse, TDN, I'm not saying that other one, but we have a lot of media that we talk to ourselves. But there is a need now to get outside of our world because of this negative connotation that isn't true, that damns our sport, that we're beating horses to the wire, that we're drugging our horses, and unfortunately none of us have the funding, really, because that's what it comes back to, the funding to get that message out. So it's still a campaign. It's a soapbox that I've wanted to jump back on, but of course HISA takes a lot of time. And as you guys know, I'm a one-man band. So we're trying to get there, and having the phone, everybody now is a producer of content. And, I'm kind of in the same weeds with Bret. I'm on social media, but it's hard for me not to say anything. I mean, when I get owners attacking me with emails that I've ruined the sport, Barry Irwin, did I say that?
Say it again.
Barry Irwin. I get a lot of emails of negativity from people in the industry. So what does that say? We're not getting the message out to people outside the industry. And so I don't respond much on social media. I'm one of those scrollers and look. But man, I tell you, when I started following Jason, I'm like, shit, this dude, he's got it. I mean, because he'll go back at him, but in a professional way. the content that he pushes out there is positive, and it relates to the horses, and it relates to his crew, and it relates to the industry. He's not attacking. It's a different train of thought, and that's what we all need to get better at. So,
Well, I have a question for Eric. So out of those responses you've gotten, people that was saying, you know, you're killing it, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever gotten one from a so-called little guy? Or they are pretty much, is there a
I
prototype of the people that are
Neg-
responding negatively to you?
negative. There isn't a question easier to answer. The negative messages that I get are really coming from what I would consider the elite level. I don't get negative messages, and I get a lot of positive messages. I don't want to say that I don't, but I get a tremendous amount of positive messages from folks that are supportive of what we are doing and trying to save this for the horses' sake. But yeah, the negative messages tend to come from the upper level.
Other questions?
There.
I think we can all use our phones that are on social media and post something good almost every day. And I think everyone should try to do that. I mean, it's not that hard to post the pictures of the horses going around the track in the morning, something getting a bath. I mean, some groom kissing their horse on the nose. It's easy, very easy to do. We can all do it.
Your help would help you with it. You know, your grooms and your exercise riders and stuff. And just get it out there, that content, because people find these horse photos. You know, they don't even have to have a message.
Yeah, I help run the thoroughbred aftercare in Arkansas, and I took a video of them running through the pond one day, and there were 3 of them, and they were like racing, you know, and they're retired. It has like, I don't even know, like 2,000 shares and 10,000 likes or 25,000 likes. It's unbelievable. And it's just a great shot. It's nothing. It was nothing.
I think aftercare is a great thing that we need to all be promoting. If you have if you either have an off-the-track thoroughbred or you had a horse and you know what he's doing as a jumper or whatever, promote that.
Any more questions? So I'm trying to find my way around here.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, the racetracks aren't gonna do it for us. I mean, you watch a commercial on the racetrack, I mean, it's mostly, it's the casino, it's gaming. They're not gonna do it for us. So yeah, we have to do it ourselves at this point,
Great. Well, this has been amazing. I'm glad that it was the last panel, but I'm not glad that it's the end of the conference. But if I could get everybody to give a round of applause.